My role is as a practitioner, and I am employed within the motor vehicle department of an FE college, teaching all levels of motor vehicle technology from foundation level through to level 3 of the IMI awards to a wide range of both young and adult learners. I mainly teach on a practical basis and find myself operating from a workshop more than a classroom. However, I do also teach some theory to the higher levels. Traditionally, it is recognised that a teacher is one who has superior knowledge of a subject and is willing and able to deliver that subject to students in a manner that is educational, inclusive, up-to-date, within the boundaries of their organisational policies and procedures, whilst working to their institution's relevant legislation and codes of practice. Also included in the role of the teacher is to cover aspects of the teacher's training cycle, depending on their role. This cycle is made up of 5 processes: identifying needs, planning and designing learning, deliver learning, assess learning. As well as covering the teacher training cycle, we also have to consider our students and the way they absorb information, whether it be by the VAC model or the 4 ways to absorb information according to Honey and Mumford 1982. But all the time we must take equality, diversity and inclusion into account. One other area we must give reference to in teaching role is legislation. In the motor vehicle department we are mainly legislated by the following acts: the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, Environmental Protection Act 1990, Supply of Goods and Services Act 1982. We are also legislated by the following acts as teachers: Race Relations Act 2000, Disability Discrimination Act 1995 and 2005, Special Educational Needs and Disability Act 2001, and the Equality Act 2006. Also, let's not forget the acts to do with copyright and data protection. We have a duty of care to consider when handling data and must also adhere to copyright rules when planning resources. A good example of this would be copying part of a workshop manual to help a student with a task without obtaining permission. These would be the Data Protection Act 1998 and the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988. Finishing off with some legislative practices for ourselves to follow, we ensure we teach correctly and safely. We must abide by IFL Code of Practice for Teachers 2008 and the Safer Practice, Safer Learning 2007. Principles and theories of teaching and learning. The key concepts, theories and principles which underpin the planning, delivery and assessment of learning are as follows. Planning. Firstly, we must assess previous knowledge so we know what level we're going to be teaching. This could be on the initial interview before the student is accepted on a course, or before a lesson begins, especially if it's an area that has been covered before in a previous course or module. Once we know what we're going to teach, then we must consider how, and this will depend on the student and the way they absorb information. We should consider the variety of learning styles and plan our lesson accordingly. These styles may include activist, reflector, theorist, pragmatist, according to Honey and Mumford, auditory, visual or kinesthetic, left brain versus right brain, convergent, divergent. Using the above styles, we can now progress to how we may construct the lesson, and whether it will be classroom or practical based. On reflection, I have planned lessons for the classroom that I later thought would have been better if they had taken place in a workshop, and vice versa. So knowing learning styles and previous knowledge leads to a well-prepared lesson for all. Delivery. Now for the actual delivery of the lesson, we need to consider that students will only absorb so much information before switching off. This is usually 15 minutes, so we have to vary our lesson and visit the main styles throughout the lesson. A good method of lesson planning is to consider the beginning, middle and end of the lesson, and plan activities for learning for all 3, so that we keep a level of interest throughout the lesson. We should keep middles to a minimum, have lots of beginnings. Try to allow the learners to create things themselves. Approach key concepts in different ways. Pause learning to give internal processing time. Provide feedback that is specific and immediate throughout the lesson. Another consideration for delivery is motivation for students to learn. We must consider a student's needs and understand how these could affect learning. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, 1987, shows us a triangle with the order of needs placed within it, from lowest to highest. Here, it is suggesting that the student should fulfill these needs before learning can take place. Herzberg suggests we should consider the rocket, which shows hygiene factors in the order they may motivate learners. Assessment. Throughout the lesson, we had to make reference to assessment, and this is for both the students and me. The main functions of assessment are as follows. Initial. Here we assess learners' ability, learning style, difficulties and specific requirements before the course commences. Diagnostic or initial. This is used to assess prior knowledge. Formative, which we use during the course. Ipsative, self-assessment which includes reflection, most suited to adult learners. Summative, this is to be carried out at the end of the course. We have different styles of assessment and these are as follows. Norm reference, criterion reference, competence-based. However we assess, we must make sure our assessment is reliable, valid, fair and safe. Now we have looked at the assessment types, we need to consider assessment methods, and these will depend on whether we are assessing knowledge, skills or attitudes. The awarding state may decide what methods we have to use, or we may be able to devise our own, but we must remember to treat each student as an individual and take diversity, equality into account, as well as meeting the needs for learners. Formal assessment methods could be by assignment, case study, essay, exam, project, test or witness testimony. Informal assessment could include discussions, gapped handouts, journals and diaries, peer assessments, self-assessments and quizzes. Another factor of assessment is to consider questioning. It is this method that we use the most in everyday teaching from the beginning of a lesson to the end. It is a good way to promote thought and reflection during a lesson. There are 5 types of questioning which are as follows. Closed, open, leading, multiple or probing. When we are asking questions, we need to use them to direct our lesson in the way we wish it to go. As well as checking learning and stimulating thought, we could direct questions at particular learners, or ask them to the group for anyone to answer. This is called directed, non-directed method. We could also use the pause, bounce to give learners time to think about the answer. We should also consider the sequence of questions that lead us to our destination. These could be as follows: from broad to narrow, extending and lifting, narrow to broad, path of questions, all around and walk. Classroom management. Inclusion in my lessons can be varied as I have a wide range of different ages, learning abilities, both male and female learners in my groups. I set a basic task that will fulfill all learners at all levels and will satisfy the topic for the day. Then I will set extension tasks to be completed by those who are quick or competent, who wish to further their learning. The amount of extension tasks that are completed depends on the learner. Another method I use in the workshop is type of vehicle used for tasks. I may set a lower level or slower learner on the basic vehicle that I know is easy to repair, and a quicker learner on the top model that is more complicated. One other method I use is to mix learners together, i.e. I will mix high and low level learners together in groups. This sometimes has the advantage of giving the lower learner a boost, as once the work has been completed, they feel they contributed to the tasks. At the same time, I also use the quicker or more capable learners to mentor the slower or less capable. This provokes some peer pressure to promote learning and does let the slower learners know where they should be in terms of knowledge. All the above helps me to manage the class in terms of behaviour, interaction and communication. I have quite a few learners with specific needs and have to accommodate them individually. Andragogy and pedagogy are both involved here. I have adult learners who do not wish to be messed around. They need to know why they are here, what they are doing, as well as why they are doing it. I have to ensure the time they spend with us is all used to the best advantage for them, whereas my younger learners do not appreciate being so deeply involved, would rather be told what to do, by when, and how. Both types of learners have their own qualities. The adults get on with the lesson, are deeply involved, and will question all there is to question. However, they are also ruthless in the way they will pick up a mistake from me. Their need for good quality work that inspires, and the fact they are recognised as adults. Younger learners are quite happy to do as they are told, as far as the work is concerned, and only do what they have to do. This could mean that they will quite literally do only what you tell them, and won't try to involve themselves any further. Once the work becomes repetitive or boring, then they will quite happily play around. Instead, the lesson can soon take a nosedive if it isn't kept in check. Functional skills. Functional skills are embedded very naturally, without the learners really knowing. We embed maths every lesson by quite simply using figures as reference, i.e. oil capacities and how much they should have left in the jug when the car has had its fill. English embedding is done at all levels differently. With the entry levels, I ask them to spell a word. I gave them the lesson before, and during the lesson I may use the word that I asked to be spelt by a random or selected student. For the higher levels, I write the aims and objectives on the board, but induce spelling mistakes on purpose. Once these are discovered, I talk about them and get the student to spell them for me. Also, if a keyword is used that I have written down on my 5-minute plan, I get the student who used it to spell it out. I find embedding of functional skills natural and easy, as it's something I've always done, even before teaching.